Welcome to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. What is the Orange Nerd Show, y'all ask? Well, the Orange Nerd Show is a little show here we have on OG55 where we talk about everything except the theme park. So we'll talk about a lot of nerdy stuff like Star Wars, Marvel, all that good stuff. Sometimes we even react to like music video reactions. But today we have a very, very special Orange Nerd. We are talking about basically manifesting and how much of your mind actually molds and crafts your physical experience. We're going deep, so deep. Let's go on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show on Orange Grove City. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Today, I got the one and only, you know who this man is, Mr. Webba, making CEO moves. Mr. Webba, welcome back on the channel, bro.
Absolutely, OG55. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, I think it's been a long time actually since I've been on an Orange Nerd Show with you. I can't remember the last time I've done one, or even when you've done one. So it's actually been a hot minute here. But I'm excited to be on and talk the Orange Nerd talk. Let's get to it.
Let's get dirty nerdy. Let's do it. All right, Webba, let's rock and roll, dude. Okay, so this is courtesy of a great YouTube channel, Chris Williamson, 3.7 million subscribers. Crazy, absolute crazy. The Neuroscience of Manifestation with his guest, Andrew Huberman. Okay, so this is a fascinating conversation. You know how we do it. Ebba, we're going to play the video. It's only about 9 minutes. We'll stop it along the way, talk about it, break it down. There's a lot to chew on with this video, so I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. You ready?
All righty, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Effect by David Robson. So he is a science writer from the UK, and he looked at a whole bunch of studies. The placebo effect, which everybody's familiar with, right? There is a particular expectation that an outcome is going to come from some sort of medication, and lo and behold, that outcome manifests. He found this across pretty much every area of anything that you care to care about. So my two favorite studies from this, so interesting. He realized that gluten intolerance, self-report gluten intolerance, has increased from 3% to 30% in 10 years.
So this is why there's so many gluten-free options on the menu?
They've got 30% of the population to serve, yeah, so people need it. And he was wondering, well, what is it? Human biology hasn't changed that much. Is it maybe that the foods have changed and people are responding to that? Or is it maybe some sort of expectation because the type of news stories that are hearing about gluten and about how bad it is for us and inflammation and all this sort of stuff, maybe it's that and people are expecting it. So they brought people into a lab. They sit them down. These people do and do not have self-reported gluten intolerances, and they give everybody the same meal. They tell everybody in the room that it's got gluten in it. It's got no gluten in it. After a while, people who don't have a gluten intolerance biologically, who haven't eaten gluten, have diarrhea, they have hives, they're breaking out in inflammation, they're having to run to the bathroom. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. He did another story that he spoke about. VO2 max tests that they were looking at. Apparently, there's a particular genetic mutation that allows people to blow off CO2 and upregulate oxygen in a better way. They brought people in, even numbers of people that did and did not have this genetic trait, split them into two random groups. So there was a mix of both do and do not have the trait in each. First group was told, you've got the right genetic trait. You should be really, really good at this. Second group was told, oh, sorry, you don't have it. You shouldn't be too good. No surprise, perhaps, that the group that was told that they did, they ended up performing better. But when they actually looked at what was happening in the physiology of these people, they found that the people who didn't have the genetic mutation but were told that they did had a lower overall lactate threshold. They had a lower overall heart rate. They were blowing off CO2 more effectively and upregulating oxygen better than the people who did have the genetic mutation but were told that they didn't. So he coined this term that said your expectation.
Okay, so this is crazy, right? This is absolutely crazy. This is exactly what people talk about when we talk about mind over matter, right? Now, a lot of hypochondriacs have this issue. You'll hear a lot of hypochondriacs or people with health anxiety will say they fear all these diseases. Like a lot of hypochondriacs will basically worry about one disease to the next. So they worry about a colon cancer, for example. They don't have it, but they worry they have it. Once they get that fear in their head, they start to physically manifest the symptoms of colon cancer. You know what I'm saying? This works in reverse too. You know what I'm saying? So my ex-girlfriend, interesting story, actually. My ex-girlfriend, she's Vietnamese. Her grandmother is like old school Vietnamese, right? And she didn't speak any English, okay? Like zero English. So when she would go to the doctors and stuff, she really wouldn't understand what the doctors are saying, right? My ex-girlfriend's family made the decision to not tell their grandma that she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And a lot of people might think, well, that's really cruel. Why wouldn't they tell her that, right? Because when grandma would go to the doctor, she wouldn't know. She would have to get everything translated to her, right? Basically what the family is telling her. She had better outcomes not knowing she had it than she would have if she had it, if she knew she had it. Because a lot of times your brain, when you know that you're sick, starts to get sicker. It's that like he's saying, that expectation, right? So she actually lived a lot longer than she was expected to live because she didn't know she had it, and she lived her life not focusing on that cancer. You know what I'm saying? So this is a real thing. And like he said in those two examples with the gluten intolerance and all that stuff, people that aren't even gluten intolerant were having symptoms of it because they thought, right? It's wild to me. But what are your thoughts on this so far? It's a crazy video.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that example you gave right there is the kind of the phrase that you would use exactly for, what you don't know won't hurt you, right?
Right.
And going back to the gluten thing, I've had issues with this myself because, I remember growing up, I never had like any type of like, digestive or like intestinal issues. But then like sometime in my early 20s and mid 20s, I noticed I was always having to, like I had like flare-ups, I guess you would call it, right? Or like IBS symptoms. And so the doctors, I got tested, not even tested, but kind of explained my situation, right? And they just kind of diagnosed me with the general IBS, right? Like anything I eat, it kind of just blows through me, right? So then I try to eliminate sources, right? Lactose, right? So I can have lactate milk, which is lactose-free milk for cereal or drink it, no problems, right? I even tested out with gluten-free options, like going to Jersey Mike's. I would get the gluten-free sandwich, and guess what? No problems. When I would have a gluten bread, I would have issues. So I was trying to cut out all these things. So I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. And I mean, I do think there are things where your body probably just reacts to certain things and it's just not good for it. At the same time, though, I get, there are things I think where if you're worried about it, it's going to come up, right? Because it's kind of manifesting from that, I want to say, kind of a metaphysical realm to then the physical, right? It creates those kind of symptoms, And but I will say though, changing up the diet for a little bit did really help. And now going back to like, you saw me. I was talking to you like 5 minutes before the video. I was eating a hamburger, right?
Yeah.
That's doing in that bread, right? No problems. It's just really kind of changing my health with all like eating style and habits. But no, absolutely. I do think that, because he was talking about this, right? And the subjects were told, oh, you have this or you don't, right? And if you're told, oh, you have this, like a positive something, right? Like, oh, you have like the highest this or whatever, you probably gain that confidence in yourself, right? So you're not really worried about it, even though they don't have what they're being told that they have. You know what I mean? So I think there's that kind of confidence, but when you're saying, oh, yeah, dude, you got this, man, you got this low, I don't know, let's say testosterone or something like that, right? Or whatever, now you start having self-doubt. Right now, your emotions, the psyche, start playing with you.
Oh, yeah.
And then now that kind of thing where we talked about, or I know what you want to talk about, was the manifestation of what's it called, OG? You said it before. What is it when you bring the kind of your mental state into physical? What was it called? You manifest it somehow. What was it called?
Manifest. Yeah.
No, yeah. It was manifest, but it was another term. But you kind of bring that from up here to out here, right?
100%.
I do think that is a really big thing, and it's funny because this is one of those situations where you have to experience it in order for it to kind of be believable, right?
Well, a lot of people doubt a manifestation. A lot of people do. And look, I've had my doubts about the manifestation stuff too. I mean, that book from years ago, The Secret and all that, I'm like, wow, this is some woo-woo stuff, But the more I started to take this stuff in and I started to just be more aware of like what's happening in my life, that's why when you have a good day, let's say you wake up and you're in a good fucking mood, right? And out the gate, you go on your morning walk and you find $100 on the sidewalk, right? A lot of times when you get into that vibration, right, of like that good vibration, so to speak, right, your whole day is set up like that. Then the whole day good things start to happen to you, right? That's not a coincidence. You are attracting more positivity because you're vibrating on that level, but it goes in reverse too. When it rains, it fucking pours, right? So you can have a bad day, wake up, you can stub your toe, and then the whole day now you're having bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. These things that I've noticed in my own life are not coincidental. Another example would be even things like, when you're shopping for new cars, and let's say you're going to buy a BMW, right? A certain BMW, like a 3 model BMW. You'll start to see that model on the road all the time now, right? Mm-hmm. It's like your brain goes to it. You know what I'm saying? So it's absolutely crazy. So there's a lot going on up here that people sort of downplay, don't really understand. But I do believe in manifestation, and it's kind of crazy.
Manifestations are even more powerful than your genes.
I love that. I'm going to read that book. That's a remarkable example.
Because he brought expectations. Now for everybody watching, if you haven't seen it, me and OG, we did a lucid dreaming and kind of mystical kind of video. And part, like I talked about in the video, part of that is expectations, right? If you're in a lucid dream or any type of mystical astral planner or whatever, right? A lot of your experience is based on expectation, right? Your expectation of what you believe, right? So that there is already the hindrance or the freedom that for your mind that is set. So you can either be your own ball and chain, or you can be your own free bird. So
well said. Oh, and you did mention, we'll talk about it.
And I think that, a lot these days is being made of epigenetic effects and things, but this is almost in the different direction. This is a psychophysiological response. I find this kind of thing, to be honest, among the more fascinating and interesting aspects of neuroscience, if not the most interesting lately. Those examples are tremendous, so I can't counter those at all with anything more spectacular. But the work of Dr. Aliyah Crum at Stanford, she runs the Stanford Mind Body Lab, and she's done simple experiments, but they're really elegant, instructing people, one group, all about the terrible effects of stress. Destroys your immune system, et cetera, et cetera. Other people telling them also true things, but all the positive effects of stress. It sharpens your ability to function. You can remember things better, et cetera, et cetera. You see exactly what you are told, basically. Now, you can't lie to people.
Okay.
You can't tell them things that aren't.
Sorry, I know I keep stopping. But to his point, I wonder if, OG, if that's because when you're told either the positive or the negative, if that's because then your mind starts to focus on those aspects, right? So, okay, cool, I got distressed. It does this for me, it does that for me. That's awesome. But then someone tells you some scary stuff. Oh, you're going to die from stress. Oh my God, right? Now you're freaking out and kind of having anxiety, stuff about it, right? So I think in both ways, your mind or your brain starts to focus on whichever point that you're being told about, right? So.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely.
True. It's just about the subset of information that you get dictates the response you get. And perhaps the most dramatic was they gave 2 different groups of people, and then they actually each got the opposite condition too, a milkshake. One group is told this milkshake is very high calorie, it contains a lot of fat and sugar, etc. Another group is told the milkshake they're getting is very low calorie, it's very nutrient sparse, etc. Then they measure hunger, so how long it takes for them to get hungry again after ingesting it. They also look at insulin, and they also look at ghrelin, this hormone that is secreted as you get, essentially makes you hungry. It's associated with hunger. There are other things too, but you see exactly what you would expect, which is that people that get the nutrient-dense milkshake are satisfied for longer, their ghrelin is suppressed, and their insulin is higher. You see the opposite in the group that had the so-called low-calorie shake. Turns out it's the exact same milkshake. This is remarkable, right? Because this is not simply the placebo effect. I think it's the placebo effect plus the expectation effect plus a real physiological effect.
Well, see, and this is crazy, right? And this is the thing too, Webba. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's really happening and what's being imagined. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead.
No, sorry, real quick, sorry. And again, back to the back to dreams. When you're dreaming, the reason why your body responds the way it does is because it doesn't know the difference at that time of what it's experiencing. It believes what the experience is an actual thing. But just to your point, I want to bring that up. But yeah. No,
that's a fantastic point. And to piggyback off of that, you're right. I mean, if you're like, for example, you don't like heights, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to close your eyes and imagine looking over a giant skyscraper looking down, you don't even have to be on a giant skyscraper. If you were just to imagine it, your heart would start to race, you would start to sweat, you would feel the anxiety as if you really were there. Your brain has the same physical response, whether you're actually looking down from that building top or whether you're imagining it. You know what I'm saying? And that's wild to me. So you can trick the brain into believing you're healthy when you're not, and vice versa. You can get literally sick if you're healthy and believe you're sick. You can literally make yourself sick. That's how powerful the brain is. So it's crazy.
Yeah. No, sorry, OG, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead.
I'll say because there's been like times, right, where I'm pretty sure you've heard of OG or people who are watching, where they had so much like mental, let's say stress, right, or anxiety or worry, right, that they start to, like the term, right, you worry yourself sick, right? You start creating actual physical elements like out of nowhere, basically, due to the mental responses from your mind.
Yeah, it happens all the time. All the freaking time. People with anxiety disorder do this to themselves all the time. They think they're having a heart attack or they think they have heart issues, and now they'll have heart symptoms for 6 months. And it's like, I've had shit like that happen to me before, bro. Dude, I had a colonoscopy, like TMI, I know, but like I had a colonoscopy like what was it, like 2 years ago now? I was so nervous about my colonoscopy. Like for 6 months leading up to 6 months leading up to my colonoscopy, I had all kinds of digestive issues. Dude, the minute I had my colonoscopy and I got off that table and the doctor came in and said, "You're 100% clear. I didn't find a polyp, nothing. You're clean as a whistle, my boy."
Yeah.
All those symptoms went away. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I'll tell you, mine's not as extreme as yours, OG, but when I was with, a previous, girl some years ago, right? Like in my early mid-20s, didn't work out, but there was a time when she had reached out to me, and there was so much stress involved in that relationship that when I was told, "Hey, let's meet up," dude, I was like internally stressing, and it caused, intestinal movement. Like my body was physically responding to how I was emotionally feeling.
Yeah.
See. So your body will respond to whatever mental state that you're in.
Oh, 100%.
Because that's what you describe as well. And the way that Dr. Allie Crum, as she goes by, the way she describes it is that any event causes a real physiological response, but that real physiological response is braided in with our expectation and our understanding of what the response ought to be to create the actual response. So it's sort of real plus perceived equals your reality.
Yes.
Right, exactly. And so I love this kind of thing, as you can tell. I'm eating up the example that you gave. I think it's spectacular because what it means is that, no, we can't lie to ourselves. We can't tell ourselves that, drinking water is going to sustain us just as food would for 5 days. We're not going to be hungry. But to some extent, if one understands that, well, you can survive a long time on just water, and you don't need to eat, then you might experience less hunger. That's the way the nervous system works.
Well, you can definitely survive longer on just water if you believe that you can survive longer on just water.
Soji, I want to ask you, and again, sorry for continuously
You're
pausing.
good.
I want to ask you. So, when we say we live in a objective, now I do believe we live in a objective reality in this physical world, right? However, how much of your, obviously, my life is different from yours, right? But we share a common world, right? But how much of your, like he was saying, perceived, your subjective like experience in the objective world is like how subjective is it in a objective world?
It's a good point,
Right.
dude. I mean, I think it's a lot more. I think that we craft our reality more than we think we do. There's people who get into relationship after relationship after relationship with the same kind of person.
Yeah.
Like you ever meet like people who are like, yeah, my last 7 girlfriends were narcissists.
Yeah.
Like there's something going on there. Like you are attracting that kind of person.
Yes.
You're manifesting it. That's a manifestation. That is a manifestation. You know what I'm saying? That's not a coincidence. There's there's 5 billion people on the planet, and your last 7 girlfriends were narcissists. How did that work out? You're obviously something's going on up here that's giving you that physical reality. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a lot going on here, and a lot of people don't believe this stuff. A lot of people think it's all people. A lot of people are very doubtful, and they feel life just kind of happens to you. And some stuff does, but I do think we manifest and we attract and repel a lot more than we think we do. Mindset's very, very important. Negative self-talk is very detrimental to people. Not even just for your physical health, just for your success in life, just for even relationships. Dude, if we had two twins, 2 dudes that looked exactly the same, one had a positive, constructive mindset, and the other twin had a negative mindset, and they went into the dating field, which twin do you think would have more success? Well, the one with the positive, more constructive mindset. You know what I'm saying? They're able to attract healthier partners at all. A lot of times the person who's so negative, can't even get a partner, so even if they look the same, you know what I'm saying? These 2 guys are going to have completely different outcomes just off of their mentality alone. So
yes. And I think to that point, OG, is that we talked about this in our near-death experience and lucid dreaming topic, right? Is that really it's about like your choices in life, right? Now, again, right, stuff does happen to you, right? Like just Wednesday, I was like this close to getting into a car accident on the way to work, because some cars like blew a smoke something and it covered my entire car. I couldn't see anything. But car accidents happen, people get like medical conditions or whatever freak accidents happen, right? So obviously stuff does happen, but ultimately we have the freedom of choice as human beings. We have the freedom of choice, and it's how we respond and act according to our situation and environment. Now, again, I will say up front, I'm very thankful and lucky to have the life that I do, right? There's a lot of people who have had way worse stuff happen to them in their life and so on and so forth. But, if you want to achieve something or have a vision, like, Walt Disney, right? Have a vision, right? You got to push forward to that and do whatever you can to achieve your goal or the vision that you have in life, right?
No, 100%. And you will notice a trend when it comes to, you mentioned Walt Disney or really any successful person. They have this mindset very early on. I'm going to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and I have no doubt about it. Walt Disney was a very driven guy. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and nothing could detour him from that, right? And that's why he had lived the life that he lived. That's why he had the success that he had. You know what I'm saying? When you believe something and you know that thing is going to happen, you will achieve that thing. Your brain will guide you through that. The brain's a very powerful thing, and people don't realize how powerful it really is. But the brain will kind of get you through that process and get you to the end result if you really do believe that that end result is going to happen no matter what. You know what I'm saying? That you will kind of find the way, your pathway to that end goal some way, somehow. But if you talk to any celebrity, any billionaire, they all tell you the same exact story. that they knew from the beginning that they were going to accomplish this thing, and they did it. And that's not a coincidence, you know?
There is no reason not to believe this. So I was really, really averse to the whole Rhonda Byrne, the secret woo, sending out messages to the universe. And David positions himself very anti that as well in the book. But you can't deny the fact that the positive thinking has a real physiological impact on what you do. He was talking about, they did a study with older people that were past retirement, and they asked them to use, what sort of words do you associate with getting older? And they split these people into two different groups, and the sort of words that people used perfectly mapped onto how long they were going to live. So the people that used the sort of words alone, frail, fragile, injury, death, they were the ones that lived the shortest. The people that said happiness, freedom, liberty, connection, maturity, those sorts of words were the ones that lived the longest. So,
well, yeah, that's crazy. Go ahead, Webba.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was cut you off. And again, I think this shows two different mindsets, right? Between two different groups of people, right? The first mindset of the words they chose sounded more fearful, right? I'm feared to die. I'm afraid I'm going to get old. I'm not going to look as I did in my prime, right? I'm going to be weak. I'm going to be small, right? All these negative things. And that's probably because that's how they view older people, right? Now, OG, like, here's the thing. I mean, you're about maybe 8 years older than me, or 7, 5. I don't know. But you still feel like you're like in your 20s, 30s, right?
Totally.
So again, it's all about the mindset, you know. And if the second group, happiness, freedom, right? Freedom from work. I can go out, go on vacation, right? Take a cruise, right? With George, whatever, you know, like, you know, so again, it's the mindset in the life that you're living, right? If you're being old and you're frail, but if you're positive about, I get to be free, I get to, you know, live the life I wanted to, all this stuff, you're golden.
No, I 100%. Yeah, a lot of people are surprised when I tell them my age. They're like, "Oh my God, you look so much younger than your age." But I have a youthful spirit about me. Yes. So it's not that's not a coincidence. Mm-hmm. My brain, my spirit is more youthful, and I look more youthful because my vibration is more youthful, right? So it matters. If I had the mentality, I'm old, I'm all wrinkled and old, and I can't walk in the theme parks anymore because this or that, I would start to look older because my mindset changed. It's amazing how your mindset will affect your physicality, how will affect your ability to do things. If you think you can't do it, you're not gonna be able to do it. Your body will shut it down. Your brain is that powerful. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy to me, dude.
Your expectations can literally impact your longevity.
I'm yet to read the book in detail, but I've talked to a guy named Ethan Kross. He wrote a book called Chatter.
He's been on the show.
Oh, fantastic.
A couple of weeks ago.
I think that internal chatter world is a very interesting one that neuroscience will eventually have something to say about. I think the most powerful mindset, at least to me, is one that, again, I learned from Ali Crum. This is a mindset that in her peer-reviewed studies of different populations, it's clear exists universally in people in the SEAL teams, but less so, or is perhaps even absent from the general population, sadly. The idea that stress grows you, that challenge grows you, but isn't the only way that you can grow, I think is a very powerful mindset. So
what do you mean by that?
So what they did is she surveyed a bunch of different people, different professions, and asked, what's your view of stress? Do you think it grows you, it diminishes your ability, et cetera? So this isn't giving people information, this is asking them for information. And the only group that said stress grows you, the more challenged, the better you get, et cetera. The more stress you experience, the more likely you are to succeed, was this group from the SEAL teams. I don't know if they were new recruits or if they'd been in a long time, but that was the group. I would add to that yes, if you adopt the mindset that stress grows you, you're going to be much better off, but also that stress is not the only way to grow in life, right? There's this idea, we have this, and again, there's sort of a gravitational pull of this, like stress grows you,
yes,
forward center of mass, or, always be in friction, limbic friction. How about a more expansive or nuanced version of that might be stress grows you. So if you're under stress, you're back on your heels from something, you think, okay, how can I get flat-footed or even forward center of mass? You tell yourself, stress grows me, stress grows me, stress grows me. But that doesn't mean stress is the only thing that will grow you, right? Learning to cycle between periods of hard work and deep, what I call non-destructive, deliberate reset, right? That's what really works over time. I can attest to that. You know, people who just really go out and tie one on in order to recover, you can only get away with that for a few years before your body and mind start to give out, right? So find non-destructive ways to reset, and also adopt the mindset that stress grows you, and adopt the mindset that, you know, there are other ways to grow that don't involve stress. And I think you're set up to have a pretty fantastic life. That's my, you know, simple view of the way these things work.
So I like this because, it's toward the end of the video. But I like this because, to me, that says, you know, you always want to find ways to challenge yourself, right? I mean, at least in my opinion, right? As you grow as a person, right? To, like, OG, we talk about, like, improving yourself, right? You know, grow as a person. You know, I think a good one for that is just life experience, right? From a variety of different things, because you learn about other people, other ideas, how to handle certain situations from different people, right? I mean, because everybody's different, everybody's unique. And yes, you know, I would say probably for like military, right? Stress is like a good thing, right? You know, pain is weakness leaving the body, right? Yeah. However, you also need that balance of having some kind of downtime. But if you know, let's say you have a hobby, right? Well, like, let's say you do a physical workouts, right? That's stress on the body. But then let's say you're like an artist, right? Whether it's a musician or a painter or a sculptor, whatever, right? Now you're now on a physical decompress, but now you're trying to find creative, challenging ways to improve your craft, right? So you're always trying to improve yourself in one way or another on different levels. Yeah. So I think it's really good to have that balance. I mean, because I'll admit, I'm not the balanced person. Look, OG, I just had a cheeseburger and I got this fat freaking soda. Right? You got unbalanced? No way, dude. I eat more unhealthy than I do healthy. but like anything, right? Having too much of the pendulum on one side is never a good thing for too long. You know, you want to have that balance between this and that, whatever that may be.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can definitely, like, look, medicine can heal you, but medicine can actually kill you too, though, right? So if you take medicine in the proper dosage, it's a healing thing. It has healing properties. You know, it fixes you. But if you take medicine in the wrong dosages, that could kill you. So the same item given with the wrong amount can do two totally different things, you know? So, and I like that what he says. I like what Andrew talks about stress, because, you know, with stress, it's like, it kind of comes back to mindset, right? It's kind of like stress is something that is essential. But if you take that stress and you kind of redirect it into something more constructive. A lot of people get this idea that, like, being positive is like delusional thinking almost, right? Like, oh, if you're being positive, you're just delusional. I don't see positive as being delusional if it's done in a more constructive way. So for example, if I have stress, and if instead of being positive and saying like, oh yeah, stress doesn't exist, I'm going to pretend like everything is fine. See, that's delusional. You know what I'm saying? But if you have stress and you say, yeah, I do have stress right now, but I'm going to take this stress and take this nervous energy and redirect it into, you know, finding a new job, finding a new relationship, doing better in my life. I'm going to use the stress as a catalyst to do better and to make my life better. Then that same stressor, that same negative reaction actually becomes a positive thing. Now you're utilizing this negative thing in your body in a more constructive way, in a more positive way. That's positive thinking. Positive thinking isn't being delusional and pretending things are okay when they're not. Positive thinking, in my opinion, is acknowledging that negative things are happening, but what the fuck are we gonna do about it? You know what I'm saying? And you know,
yeah. Oh, to your point, right? Let's take this scenario, okay? And again, you know, humans are never going to be perfect, right? I'm not perfect, right? Really, nobody's perfect. But I think, you know, everybody gets caught up, you know, including myself, in the day-to-day life, right? Now let's try to take that positive thing here, right? OG, what would have happened if I actually crashed my car that day, right? oh, great. Now I'm stressing out because not only is the car damaged, our only car, my transportation, but also now how am I going to get to work to make my money, right? How am I going to get to work to make my money to pay the bills? Right now, I'm stressing financially because I'm going to lose my job. Then I'm not going to have any money to pay my bills. And then I'm going to lose my apartment and everything else, right? So it's a trickle effect. And then when you're in moments like that, it is very, very hard to try to have that positive mindset because now you're thinking about what's going to happen or what can happen.
Oh yeah.
Right? You know,
well, and there's a saying that, and I don't know the exact quote, but the saying is people have so many problems, and basically people have so many problems, and most of those problems are in their imagination, and that's true. 9 times out of 10, this has happened to me so many times. I will, like what you were just saying, oh, if I don't have a car, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. Catastrophizing, right?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, whenever I've done that to myself, like, oh man, so-and-so, I haven't heard from so-and-so in 2 days. They're mad at me. Oh, I'm going to lose my job because my boss said this, that, and the other. Every time I've made those catastrophic predictions, 9 times out of 10, they'd never come true. Or if they did come true, the outcome was easier to handle than I thought it would be. You know what I'm saying? And it's, the imagination, it's usually when we get into that mode with the negative thinking and the catastrophizing, it's usually 1,000 times worse than the actual situation. Almost always, Yes,
and I can talk about this a little bit. So, I got a new job, right? But OG, dude, I told you, man, like I was stressing. Dude, I was stressing, dude. I was like, oh my God. It's like, oh, dude. But, again, that is me stressing myself out, right? I'm thinking of like the worst possible outcome, and then I'm thinking, okay, if this doesn't work out, then what next, right? So again, another example of me being in that kind of in the moment, stressing out, having more of a negative mindset than a positive one.
100%. That's a great example. And that's kind of a recent example, right? You thought like you thought you did really bad in the interview. Yeah. You're like, oh, gee, I thought I bombed it. I didn't think I did very well. And then you ended up getting the job. You know what I'm saying? You end up getting the job and you're doing fantastic, so it's crazy. And I've had that happen to me before, not necessarily with jobs, but other stuff where it's like, I've convinced myself like, oh man, this negative thing is going to happen. It's horrible. Crickets, that negative thing never happens. And sometimes that same thing that I was worried about ends up being opposite. Like it's actually like, wow, actually a really good outcome. Like what happened to you, So it's crazy, but great topic. I love talking about manifestation and stuff because I do think that mindsets are very much downplayed in society. A lot of people think it's like hoity, like woo-woo kind of like mystical shit that doesn't really matter. And I disagree with people when they say that. I do think your mindset does matter. And I think that you can see the evidence in people that succeed in life and versus the people who don't. You can see the evidence in people who get into good relationships and people that don't. There are patterns with this stuff, and it all stems from the mindset almost every single time. But Ebba, any final closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, just to kind of bounce off you real quick. I do believe personally, that here in our Western culture society, we don't really place value on the importance of, mental mind states. I do think now we're getting better. Our culture is getting better in terms of like, really being serious about anxiety and depression and stuff, PTSD, stuff like that, right? But as a whole, for like mental states and like how, positivity or negativity can affect your reality, I do think that we don't place enough importance on that. And I think we should really take a look at ourselves and see, okay, how am I acting and behaving and thinking, and how is that affecting the world around me, right? And I think if more people did that, more self-reflection, I think if more people had more self-reflection, we would probably have a better world overall, in my opinion. But again, people aren't perfect. I'm not self-reflecting all the time. It's only moments like this where I really sit and think about it. Like, oh, self-reflect. I don't do that all the time, but I do think it is right. Take responsibility for your actions. Don't always assume the worst all the time, like how I was at that moment. But again, it's always easier said than done, right? I mean, like anything in life, it's always easier said than done. But yeah, you know, your mental mind state can absolutely have physical effects on your body and on your reality.
100%, 100%. What I usually do is actually I play this on repeat before I go to bed.
Brand new money, brand new hundreds, got a bunch of zeros like a bag of new Funyuns.
And I wake up with so many zeros like a bag of new Funyuns. You know what I'm saying, dude? You got to make that money. You got to make that money. Mr. Webba, it is always awesome having you on the show, brother. Always good to have you on the show. If you could let everybody know where they could find you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely, OG. Thank you so much for having me on. And you can find me on social media, making CEO moves, especially here at Orange Grove 55. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, at Mr. Webba91. You can also find me on TikTok. I haven't posted anything because I don't know what to post, but thanks to Candy Camper, he told me to get one, so I got one. That's at Mr. underscore Webba91, something like that. You'll see it. And then you can also find me right here on Orange Grove 55.
There he is, Mr. Webba himself. All right, everybody. So we're going to close out this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Before we close it out, we have a new member of our OG55 family. You might have noticed a new outro. Her name is Mimi Fan, lovely girl, and she did an amazing outro for us. We're going to close it out with the outro, and just make sure you follow her on Instagram. And she also has a new YouTube channel. Make sure you go over there right after this and subscribe to Mimi's YouTube channel and show her all the love. Until the next time, OG55, Mr. Webba,
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and become a member today.